Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Graham Wright, and I'm the head of Altrincham Grammar School for Boys, and I'm also the Grammar School Heads Association Rugby RFU Rugby Rep. And I took over this position in March 2020, just before the first lockdown hit. I've attended a few online, one face-to-face RFU meeting and a few online RFU meetings, and what I immediately thought was that we need in this sector a collective voice for grammar school, state grammar school rugby, and a closer relationship between the grammar school sector and the RFU. I think we all know that the HMC and the IAPS, the Prep School Association, work relatively closely with the RFU, and I'd really like the grammar school sector to also work closely each year with the RFU. So really the purpose of this session is to first of all, get some names into an email list so that we can come together as a sector more often and get some communications going out. Also for Mark and Mike to update colleagues on some of the pertinent issues coming up for school rugby in the next few months. And I hope really that after Mark and Mike are finished, that we can have a really open and transparent Q&A session, and this will be an excellent opportunity to get everything out on the table and find a way forward for us as a sector. So I'm going to hand over first to Mark.
Thanks very much, Graham. Hi everyone, really good to as Mike says, see some faces, which is excellent. Mike, just to confirm that the chat is open, so if you've got anything you want to ask or comment on as we update, then please do just bang something in there. It would probably be good, Mike, should we ask everyone to just put their name and school down as well, so we've got a list of that, although we've got that in other places. It'd be great if you want to just put your details in the chat as well. It is meant to be two-way, as Graham says, isn't it? So we'll do that. What Mike and I are going to do is I'm going to do a sort of more general update, and then Mike will do things that are more specific before we get into some Q&A. And just first of all, just wanted to endorse what Graham said. Really, we're just as keen as Graham is to make sure we've got a really good dialogue, a regular open dialogue with the grammar school sector. And also Mark Lowe, who is the on secretary of the England Schools Rugby Union, is on the call as well. And Mark and we work really closely together. So anything we say RFU-wise, hello Mark, good wave. Anything we say definitely includes ERFSU as well. And we're in regular contact with Mark and work together on all these things as well. So I think I can say that goes for you as well, Mark, in terms of the joined up approach. So just by way of an introduction to what's going on really, and some of this you'll be aware of, maybe not in total, but it'll give you a bit of a reminder of some of those things, and also I can give you some more recent information particularly around the player safety work we're doing. So first of all, the first area is return to rugby really, and we know, as Graham has said, it's been a really tough time for everyone trying to do some sort of rugby during the last 12-18 months. And those that have managed to do something, we're really grateful. Everyone across the game is grateful, whether it be in schools, clubs, colleges, universities, for what everyone's been doing, because it just helps to keep rugby in people's mind's eye, and not just the players but their parents as well. So thanks for everything that everyone's been doing. And where we find ourselves at the moment is we're in that out of season period for the age grade games. So that includes our schools and colleges as well. But this year, what we did do, as many of you will be aware, is we suspended our usual out of season regulations, and we went to a different summer because of the rugby that has been missed. And that's now driven by our summer activity guide, which is available. And when I've finished, I'll put the links in the chat for you. The summer activity guide, which basically splits up June, July, August, by what is available to be played in those months. And actually what we've wanted to do is try and enable more opportunities than would happen in a usual out of season. So we've lifted some of the restrictions. An example would be, so in the contact age groups across the game, usually under 13 and below, you wouldn't be able to do contact during the summer months, but we've opened that up to some limited contact time that helps you and clubs to be able to do some contact work with players that helps them get back to rugby in September. So that's an example of the sorts of things that have been changed in that summer activity guide. We're coming up to July, obviously, and July is where we've gone from in June from ready for rugby non-contact into July into X rugby, which is our modified contact format of the game. So if anyone in the age grade game wants to play fixtures, they play to that format, which reduces the amount of contact, but does mean that contact can be played, and also the amount of time being able to be spent a week on sessions and contact and things like that does increase slightly for July as well. Before we get to August, it works, develops again and progresses towards the adapted laws that we were playing back in May, to have a month of playing to those and training to those to be ready for the full, fingers crossed, touch wood, everything, the full game returning in September. So that's how the summer activity framework works. As you will be aware, the delay in the government moving to step 4 of its roadmap has affected sport and rugby. So in the broader game and in the adult game as well, it is worth just stating for you on here that we have had to delay the return to the scrum and the maul. Our aim was to, when we moved to step 4, which potentially was going to be back in on the 21st of June, wasn't it, originally, that we were going to be able to reintroduce those in the adult game. That has been delayed, obviously. Fingers crossed and everything that on the 19th of July we will, and the government will move to step 4, at which stage we will then be able to reintroduce scrum and maul training, to then introduce scrum and maul playing after a period of getting everyone back acclimatised to those parts of the game. And that's what we want to obviously try and include across the entire game once everyone gets back into the age grade season as well. If we don't hit the 19th of July, as you'll all recognise, there are some implications of that, in that if there's further delay, that would be 6 weeks out from starting the season, wouldn't it? So we're going to have to really think about the safe reintroduction of scrum and maul if we do get further delayed, but we'll make sure we try and keep everyone across that. And knowing that schools and colleges and universities will be on holiday then, we'll be working through our social media channels to do that and try and make sure we get information to you. But fingers crossed, everything will go as planned from the 19th of July. But of course, we have to be ready to react as we and you have all done over the last couple of years. So that's sort of the return to rugby position currently. Secondly, there are a number of other changes to the game, to the age grade game, and again, some of these you'll be aware of, others you may not be, but these are all in our age grade changes document. And again, I'll put the link to that on the chat for you, which is on the Return to Rugby page. And basically, this was where we looked at what could we do to react to the fact that people hadn't been able to play as often as they would have done over the last 18 months. But also think most of all about player safety and how do we try and reintroduce the game in a way which supports the lack of rugby over the last couple of years, but in a way that tries to enable as well. So just to highlight sort of 3 areas. The first one is around the rules of play, and I expect you'll all be aware that we've delayed the shift to the next set of rules for the first part of the season. So the best way to describe this is an example. So our under 14 players this season in 2021, they still become under 15s next season. So they still move officially. The official date of when you move your age group is the 1st of August every year. And that group are under, they become under 15s from the 1st of August and their pre-season. But what they will do for the first half of the season up until the 1st of January, they will play to the under 14 rules that they've missed, and particularly the contact elements are really important in there. So those progressions that they've missed as under 14s for that first half of the season up until the 1st of January, they play to their under 14 rules. And then after the 1st of January, they move to their under 15 rules. So they're basically doing 2 years of progression in one season because they've missed so much rugby. Now, what we understand and what we have some sort of further work around that we've done is that for some schools like yourselves and some clubs and some players as well, they might not get to play rugby after Christmas usually. So what we have said is from the 1st of November, a school, a club, a player can start to train in that second set of rules they're going to move to. They can play internal training matches as well, so they get a go at playing, not just training, but playing to those rules that they're going to move to from the 1st of November. But it's not until the 1st of January that they can go out and play against another school or club in those rules. Now, we know that might provide some challenges for schools who don't play after Christmas, but that's where we're really keen on the drive to get clubs and schools to work together, because, of course, in the broader game, there are still 4 months of the season to go from January. And we know a number of you, and it's something that the grammar school sector does really well. You work with your local clubs and you try and help players have that opportunity to continue playing outside of school. That's something we want to encourage right across the whole of the school and college sector, is how can we work with our local clubs after Christmas, if we're not playing school rugby, to help them to play club rugby. So we're going to do some work on that, pick up some good examples and models of it and share those as well. So that delay and shift of the rules is taking place. It's all around the safe introduction of the new progressions for next season. And then the other two areas I was going to highlight just very quickly, 17-year-olds playing adult rugby. We've also we've delayed that as well. So usually a 17-year-old can go through an assessment process, a robust assessment process to get approval to play with adults. That's been delayed now, so that regulation won't come in now until the 1st of January again, 2022. So they are playing within their age groups up until January, and then from that point, a 17-year-old could go and play adult rugby. So that's the other key change around players at that top end of age grade. And then the final one is combining of teams. So usually our regulations would, particularly in the boys' teenage years, wouldn't allow groups of teams to be combined. However, we've opened that up for a season because we know there could be some real implications of player retention as a result of COVID. So when there is a threat to a team or to players actually being able to play because they haven't got enough players, for this season coming, they can combine with a team either one age older or one age younger, which wouldn't usually be the case. That is allowed at younger age groups, under 13 and below, but wouldn't usually be allowed at 14, 15, 16. But we've opened that up this year. The criteria is still the same, so it still needs a really robust risk assessment. The rationale needs to be about numbers of players not being available, but we have opened that up. And still, the individual player playing up or down for the specific reasons in regulations, that's still available as well. But this combining teams is about whole groups of players who might not have enough to play to actually play a game. Now, as I say, all this stuff is really well trailed in the information. I'll put the link, as I say, in the chat for you. So have a read of it. If you think it's something that might impact on your programme or support your programme, then please have a read of it. And if there's any questions, you can give us a shout. And the final thing for me is just the more hot off the press stuff around player safety. And hopefully you've seen some of the recent media reports, particularly in the Times. We work closely with Owen Slott from the Times around our work we've been doing on head injury prevention and safety and tackle height. Now, this work is really important to stress. This has been going on at quite a pace for the last 3 years. We were really close to a position of running a tackle height trial actually when COVID hit. However, of course, what also hit during that period last November was the terrible stories around dementia and former rugby players at international level, which really sad information that we were hearing. But of course, it also meant we were in a legal position. We had to therefore be careful about what we were able to say and not say. But in the last 10 days, we've been able now to be more public with things. And hopefully you've seen that what will happen next season is the tackle height right across the age grade game in schools, clubs and colleges will go to armpit height. So up until now, or certainly this season, the the game at under 14 and above was shoulder height for tackle height, and then the rest of the age grade game was armpit height. Already been agreed and signed off by council and our governance system that everyone will move to the armpit height. Now, that might not sound like a big difference between the shoulder and the armpit, but the aim of all of this is we're using the phrase, to take two heads out of the same airspace. And just that slight reduction in that the limit of the tackle height to armpit makes a huge difference to the numbers of times that two heads are in the same airspace when a tackle is being made. So that is definitely coming in for next season. And we'll have lots of information, support, guidance, etc. for coaches, referees, players to help with that. And then the other area is our evaluation trials, which you might have seen as well. And what we're going to do is measure and do a research program to evaluate a waist-high tackle height in the age grade game, under 16s and under 18s. And so what we're working on at the moment is identifying some groups who are going to help us to do that in a specific competition or a specific area of the country. Both schools and colleges as well as clubs are helping to look at that. And we're putting together where those areas will be. We're trying to look at 1,200 matches across the season that will be measured through various means. What's the injury rates when you do reduce the tackle height, but not only that, also the height at which the ball carrier enters to the tackle as well. So it's not just about the tackler, it's about the tackle player as well. So really exciting stuff. You might have seen they've been doing some of this in New Zealand and France as well, across their age grade and some adult games as well. But this is the sort of stuff we want to be doing for a long time, because the law clearly has a massive impact on the way the game is played and the safety of the game as well. So some really exciting stuff around thinking very hard about the safety of the player across the age grade game. So there'll be more information around that. We're looking over the next week to try and confirm where those evaluation trials will take place. You might be wondering, are you involved? If you haven't heard about it yet, don't worry, because you won't be involved if you haven't heard about it yet, because we're really conscious that people need an early heads up. But what you may be able to help us with is talking about how your current injury rates look with the regular rules, because of course what we need to do is we need to confirm the waist height tackle with the armpit height tackle. So there will be some work around how do we collect information and data around injuries played generally in the game to compare with the trial. So it's all that's all good stuff, because it means we've moved on something that we were ready to do 2 years ago, but now really accelerating and getting some really good buy-in from the game. And of course the media are really interested in it as well, around the player safety agenda. So that's it from me, sort of 10 minutes of update there. Clearly I've seen some questions are coming. We'll have a look at those while Mike talks as well, and hand over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, that's great. I was going to say Nick's will probably follow on nicely from mine. I was thinking the other two probably link to your updates anyway, don't they, and stuff. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, no, just thanks everyone. I'm just going to share my screen in a moment. I've just got a little bit of a presentation. I know I'll try not to PowerPoint you to death and everything, but just to follow on from what Mark's mentioned, what Graham's mentioned, just a massive thank you for taking the time during your lunch break. We appreciate the busy times. I know you're getting towards the end of term and everything, but your time's great, and we wanted to give you these updates, but also just share a little bit of work that we've been looking at in terms of the formats of the game. And how we can actually roll this out across schools. So I'll just wait for this to load up. Okay, sorry about that. It's a bit slow. Can you see that, Mark? Has that come up? Yeah, cool. That's great stuff. Yeah, so again, a massive thanks. What I'd like to do, I mean, this is, and I think the background to this really, hopefully I'll be 10 minutes or so. And then the background for this is actually this was work that we were doing pre-COVID, and I think it's probably fair to say that actually COVID's probably accelerated it, but also we've also used the learnings of actually, when we went through the different roadmaps, and actually used the time when we were, furloughed, but actually used the time actually when we're at that stage C time that actually the non-contact version of the game, how inclusive it was, and actually how it supported player retention and recruitment. So our intent really in terms of formats for the playing offer across school is actually just have a safe and simple player exposure, enjoyment and experience within school rugby. And we know that full contact, the full 15-a-side game plays a big part of that, but actually it's probably not for everyone. And actually with trying to make the game more inclusive and safer for everyone, we probably just need to start to adapt the offer a little bit. So the progress we've done so far, of course, is we know we've got those different samples, and there's just different tierings of schools that we have across the country. So if we look at our established schools, we'd generally be looking at schools that have a full rugby programme, probably more than one team at every age group, dedicated staff, or in some instance probably even dedicated rugby staff across all age groups, curricular and extracurricular. That development area, we probably have, again, a big rugby programme. It's probably on par with other sports that are going on in the school as well. Bit of curricular, maybe not so much extracurricular, but there's some fixtures list going on, but it's not as big, and it's probably relying on that one or two really key members of staff to drive that. So there's probably a little bit at risk there. And then the kickstart schools, probably an intention of starting some form of rugby that actually just need a little bit of help to get across the line, playing opportunities, maybe a bit of teacher training. So what we've looked to do is actually just start to develop 3 formats of the game: a non-contact version, a modified contact version, so modified rugby or ex-rugby, and a full contact version of the game as well, which of course it currently exists. So I'll just move through. So the non-contact version, I'll let you have a read through that. What we've started to look at, of course, we have O2 Touch. We rolled out Ready for Rugby, so we were conscious that actually we had to adapt to Stage C, and actually we wanted to try and use the core skills of rugby union directly, the fact that it's an invasion game, and actually that whole part of actually breaking the line and then having the chaos of defence once we've broken that first line. So we're just in the process of looking at actually how we merge them two to actually develop that non-contact version, but it'll be a fun format of rugby, easy to teach, and actually more importantly, actually we can actually start to develop that mixed gender wise, so actually hopefully be a great opportunity to roll out in schools, and it can be ranged from between 6 and 10 a side. So we're really focusing this at people who are new to rugby. Maybe there's areas of people that don't enjoy the contact element, we're returning from injury, and actually we really want to focus on those fundamental skills of catch, pass, run and kick. So it's just trying to work on those key core skills before the contact part, really building on confidence, which of course leads to competence. So we're actually putting it the player at the heart of that. And actually that could be rolled across all different schools. Actually it might be an offer maybe for a CD team in a certain school environment, or for an extracurricular club, that actually this is probably a better offer for them, instead of actually forcing them into that full 15-a-side, where we can actually just start to build a bit of confidence and competence with the player. So the modified contact, or the reduced contact, which we're starting to use that terminology, you may have seen ex-rugby before. So this will be a reduced intensity of contact version of the game. So it'll be fast game, it'll be played across the half pitch. And it'll be a great way to introduce students to the game, whether that's 5, 7 or 10 a side. So there'll be adapted rules around the contact element. So we're hoping to have that waist height tackle, and then it'll be a 1-on-1 tackle, and then it'll be potentially the size of the game, a 1-on-1 or a 2v2 ruck or more. So we're just starting to reduce that intensity. And again, great to people might want the contact element of the game, but they just might not be ready to move from touch straight into the full contact version of the game. Again, looking to develop that confidence and competence within the player, but actually just moving on from the catch, pass, run, kick onto the catch, pass, run, kick, tackle, and then that leads into the breakdown and the principles of play in terms of around the core skills of rucking and mauling. All right, and it links to the whole play motivations that actually we know that generation coming through now wants a faster, easy flowing version of the game. So our future plans going forward, and actually a lot of these are started to do, actually, we've started to develop some promotional videos. So that filming's been done already. We're just in the process of editing that. So the plan will be to have a set of videos for the non-contact, the adapted contact, and the 15-a-side game already, animated and live videos of the school and the college environment of children or kids, players playing the game. That'll be packaged up into a one-stop shop format around having guides around, you know, who it's aimed for, the rules, a nice little simple checklist of what you need, and then it'll be backed up with some session plans. The video links will all be linked in there, so there'll be video links about how to play the game, backed up with the guides, with the session plans, and then underpinned by some teacher CPD, which will be a blend of e-learning and face-to-face, dependent on your level of school and where you are and what's relevant. So it might be the non-contact element of the game that you're just looking to introduce that actually the guide gives you a simple process of how to play the game, and actually it just might be a nice simple e-learning module to get you up to speed, which then might roll into some face-to-face training later on in the year. And then the key bit really is what hopefully we can get into a bit of discussion about that engagement, about, as Graham mentioned to start with and Mark mentioned, and we've got of course Mark Lowe from England Schools as well, that whole advocacy piece in terms of how we work together to land this and actually get the advocacy. So this will be a recommended approach and best practice from England Rugby, as of course then it gets the endorsement for England Schools as well. So this is what we provide. These are 3 versions of the game, or formats of the game that we'd like to promote within the schools. You've got that advocacy work there, but also there's some further work going on online about actually how we can, what would help you to push that within your schools, whether or not we need to sell that with senior leadership teams or with heads and so on. So what would be great is actually, I've gone through that pretty quickly, but I'm just conscious we've had a bit of chat and already, and I'd love to, you know, open up to have that open, transparent chat really. It'd be great to get feedback on that approach, whether we use the chat. I know Mark's firing away answers at the moment. Or I'm happy for you to unmic and have that chat. And in terms of actually that feedback and approach, we did a number of focus groups to get these bits, and I think there's a couple of guys on the call today that helped us with this, which has helped us shape this. How can we best land this with you, really? And you know, as a group, is this something you'd look to endorse? Maybe Graham might want to jump in here. Is anyone willing to open up and just fire around in terms of feedback on those 3 versions and formats of the game? Stunned with silence.
I've got a list of some members of the group who have questions, more general questions, but I'm sure if anyone's got any questions on that, what you and Mark have had to say, Mike.
Cool. So really, I mean, it's just whether or not, you know, that approach. I mean, again, we can feed it off later. I mean, it'd be good to know how we best land this. Is it through this group? How we get endorsement? Oh, Nick's got his hand up. Go for it, mate.
No, I'll speak out. I think that's great. Just you know, even a few pages there, those options for a school to have, again, everyone's own sort of areas that will impact and out numbers and what have you. But I think those options are spot on. I really do. I think they're really good and offers to everyone. I know, you know, the numbers certainly for me with the non-contact went up. You know, those actually, and you sort of maybe traditionally you don't see those. All right, if it's non-contact, I'll play. So those numbers went up. So I think having those options are really good, and even the ex-rugby, which to be honest I've not done much, if any, of. But I think again that for me is quite a happy medium. So I think that's good. There's your feedback, Paul.
Does that help you in terms of actually having that? Almost like, I'll try and share it in a moment in terms of what the draft looks like. It'll be like a one-stop shop in terms of these are the maximum playing numbers, pitch size, this is who it's targeted at, here's the rules, here's a video to support it with some session plans as well. Would that be quite helpful? And then it'll be signpost to e-learning and face-to-face learning.
I think for me, I think that's great. Look, you know, we're a traditional school with teachers and coaches, so with regards to staff and experience, that's great for me, and you know, I can transfer that over very quickly. You know, it's those kickstart schools that need that extra support. Look, you know, when you play all those type of touch, then they start smashing each other, so you might as well do a bit of contact anyway. And you know, then you find people moving out to the wing. So in our sessions, I'm sure in our schools we get all that in one mix. But I think you can start defining it with a bit of, you know, quality and support and resource. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. And Mike, again, can I just chip in there, Mike? Just one of the points, and it certainly relates to what you said, Nick, is, and just to emphasise what Mike's talked about, we're really keen here to almost changed the perception of what school rugby is. Because actually that we're finding, and you'll be finding this as well, that when you get questions from parents or your governors about safety and things like that, to be able to say rugby isn't what you see on the TV, it's not what we've traditionally done with full contact, there's a broader curriculum here, and there are opportunities for every single player of all different motivations and standards to be able to pick up a rugby ball and do the things that they do as an invasion game. So that's what I think we're trying to do. This is quite, for me, this is quite a line in the sand for the sport, to be honest. And actually, we want to challenge our clubs to think the same way as well. You know, if you go to a rugby club at under 9, you're introduced to the contact game. If you don't like it, at the moment, generally, you walk out the door, and that just doesn't feel right. You know, our sport is, there are 40,000 adults every week playing touch rugby. So why can't we have that sort of an offer for everyone, and in your schools and in all the types of schools that there are out there as well? So it's, you know, this is quite a game changer, I think, for the sport. And certainly if we can support you to do that, to engage your parents, your SLTs, you know, heads with it, we'll help you to do that.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. I think as well, we've got a change in demographic where we are. So we've got a lot of non-traditional playing ethnicities. So having the ability to make that offer across the board to all our students will absolutely, moving forward, increase the playing numbers.
Cool. Is there anyone else? I know Graham, you had a few questions.
We have Mr. Keeling Jones. Got a question? Hand up. Okay.
Hi, sorry. We're at a grammar school in Maidstone in Kent, and we've got a Maidstone Schools PE Association. So I think the formats you're showing here will be great, not only for the grammar school setting, but for our other secondary schools. Is there any way that, for example, myself could get more information in being able to deliver like a CPD session to the other PE staff in the area, or will it just be the stuff that you're going to be providing on the site first of all? It's just, you know, I think it'd be quite handy for myself to speak to some of those other staff around the schools who in the last couple of years been really trying to drive their rugby, but want some more detail from those that are more experienced in rugby, like the grammar school staff generally, that we've got around. And so wonder whether there's any sort of CPD opportunity as a delivery of a course or something like that would go into those.
Do you want me to pick that up, Mark?
Yeah, go on, Mike. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, there will be. The plan is we're just drafting it up at the moment. So as you saw that page in terms of the offer, along with the video guides and that one page, the plan will be to have that blended e-learning and face-to-face learning. So the plan will be to have the tackle safety and all the head case bits in a one-stop shop place for you guys to access straight away. So you're looking at your player safety piece. And that'll be we're still working through, that'll be a recommended approach depending on what your offer is at this moment in time. And then there'll be a course for the non-contact game and for the ex-rugby. So there'll be like a contact. So here's the course that we recommend you to take if you're looking to deliver a non-contact version of the game. Here's a course we'd recommend you to take if you're looking to modified. And then we have the England Rugby Coaching Award, which should support the 15-a-side game anyway. So there's no point devise anything else on there, which I'm sure Nick might advocate. He's been on plenty before in terms. So that'll cater that way. I think you were also alluding to the fact of a train the trainer type approach, were you? Yeah. Right. Okay. That we've heard that before, and that's something we've just got to work through with our game development department. And so on. Of course, we've got our capacity is different now. Of course, as the changes of COVID, we've got a different structure and everything. So it is something we need to look at, but I don't have an answer for it at that moment in time. The CPD for you guys, yes, and that train the trainer approach, we're just working that through in terms of what that potentially looks like. We do have a workforce of 24 national coach developers now. Right. So. Yeah. For me, I'm sure it'll be about how we deploy them and how we work together as a group to understand need, and then actually plan that in, and use myself and Mark to actually plan that in with other departments of the RFU about how we push that out through yourselves.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I did get sent a few questions from, is Charlie Thomas from Alcester Grammar here? or Simon Dandy from Pates? Okay. Richard from Bishop Wordsworth? It's going well.
Maybe they've all got the answers now, Graham. They don't need to ask them anymore.
Clive Lindsay from King's School, Grantham.
I am here.
Yes.
Well done, eventually. My point really is around, I know sort of we've looked at a very specific agenda there with how can we increase participation and looking at kind of getting kids back in, and that's good and it's really important. But I'm also looking at a lot of schools here who have got well-established rugby programs and that kind of thing. And I was just thinking about how could we offer competition for them. I know we have the NatWest for 15s and 18s, but I know a lot of schools in our area that are perhaps less well established are also struggling to get competition because they're struggling to get with a lot of the private schools that they'll want, you know, four age groups on a Saturday with A, B, and C. So I was wondering if there was any sort of appetite for providing a state grammar school competition that would run nationally, and if there is interest in it, what age group do we do that in? So, for example, we with the cricket at the moment, they do kind of county level competition up until under 14, and then after that it goes to national. Would there be any appetite from the people here, and probably a few of those schools that you've just asked for, Graham, that aren't on the call? I know they'd be interested. Is there any appetite really for that type of competition? Certainly, it's something that we would be interested in entering, or even help run the logistics of it as well.
Mike, should I take that, Clive? It's a really good point. One of the things that we're going to do over the next couple of years is review that right across the age grade game. What is the competitive offer, and particularly around making sure that those who don't have established programs are able to access playing opportunities. Part of that will be to review all the national schools cups, because although we have under 15 is around 500 teams take part, under 18 is slightly less, about 400. So it's still a big group of schools playing in that. But of course, many of them only get 1 or 2 games. So we're looking at how can we, do national knockout cups to actually do what we're talking about and what you're talking about here. We don't think they do, and we need to look into that. Are there better ways to create fixture programs that actually, when the result matters a little bit less, probably create more participation and more playing opportunities for players as well? We acknowledge it's absolutely about trying to find a balance between those things. So that'll be part of the review. But it is worth saying in the meantime that on a local level, our county schools unions are really focused on this as well, and trying to create local playing opportunities, particularly for those schools that are progressing to pit themselves against your kind of schools. But to try and make sure we're levelled, that we're trying to find the right appropriate contest for people rather than mismatches and things like that. So it's not an easy one, but there is a lot of work both locally and nationally going on to try and improve that position. So yeah, anything that we can, as Graham said at the beginning, anything we can do to work with you guys to try and shape those things would be great.
Yeah, well, as I said, we would be keen to help organise and run things like that. And if there's anyone else in this chat who'd like to follow-up conversation, I'll put my email in again. If anyone has any other thoughts on it, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question that Truman from Skinner's Kent sent me, which I'll read out to you. One thing that us as a grammar school find difficult to do is to staff and have suitable rugby specific coaches to run a suitable and efficient rugby programme. We don't have the funding like private schools that can employ rugby specific staff for their games afternoons and weekend roles. Our fixture card has some top schools on it. We do run weekend fixtures, but sometimes it's difficult to staff each team, which could then bring participation down. Not sure how the RFU could assist with this, but just a thought. Perhaps some funding for the grammar school sector that could help us employ rugby skilled and rugby specific coaches to help the development of individuals who most of the time do not have much rugby knowledge. We tend to use staff who are willing but do not offer expertise on the rugby field. So maybe some CPD for staff at the RFU could come in and offer the grammar sector could be a good idea. I know they do offer CPD, but again, there is a cost here. That was from Skinner's School.
Okay, it's a good question, and as we kind of mentioned before, the whole rugby offer will be packaged up with underpinned by that teacher CPD. So again, that blended e-learning and face-to-face piece. So we're just working on that at the moment, and I think what the reason that will be different. Yes, it's part of our training workforce suite, but actually it'll be part of almost like a kit bag for you as schools to be able to take off the shelf and play in this version of the game. This is what I need to mandate or make sure that I'm safe. This is how I play it. These are the tools and resources. This is the training I need to play this version of the game. So it'll be almost like a step-in process in terms of what you'll need to do. And then in terms of people, that's exactly why we're looking to try and develop that in terms of that workforce piece, in terms of actually we know it's reliant on one or two really key people. So we're starting to reach out to the new clubs and communities teams around actually the club developers and how we can work centrally to actually connect the education establishments with local clubs. So I know some of you will have good links already, but actually how we can enable that with you. And the use of community groups and the virtual world will actually be able to open that up a lot more regular for us and stuff. So we're looking at that process. You got anything else to add, Mark? Or I hope that answers.
The only thing I'd briefly add, Mike, is that the whole thing around people and workforce is right on our agenda, as Mike mentioned earlier, and you're all aware that because of our challenges around COVID and revenues, we've had to drastically reduce the number of people we have in the field. So we look much more like other governing bodies from a staffing point of view now. Which means we need to do things that they do well, which is how we create central resources, but work with networks of teachers, other agencies who work in the sector to deliver them. So that's a big area of work for us as well at the moment.
Okay, I've got Nigel from St Ambrose.
Yeah, hi. I'm talking about the competitions really. Is my understanding right that if they're in the under-15 Daily Mail Cup, they'll play under 14 rules until Christmas, and then on January the 1st, if they're progressing, they'll revert back to the under 15 rules?
Yeah, that's correct, Nigel. Yeah.
And is that going to happen in the junior age groups? Because we do have county cups as well.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, because the November the 1st, I was under the impression it reverts back in those age groups. Is that not true?
No, it's 1st of January that competitive, cup games, etc., league games would move to the new under 15 rules.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Graham, can I just quickly come in on another one? Just something I really should emphasise is we've had a couple of questions in the chat around girls rugby. So Tasha and Dawn, I think, have mentioned that. Massive drive for us. The whole growth of the girls game and women's game is huge for us. And you may have seen this week we've relaunched our reshaped strategy for the next 4 years, having had massive success in the last 4 years. And our aim is across the whole women's game is to bring 100,000 players to the game in that period. There's a Women's World Cup obviously coming up next year. There's one in 2025 as well. And that will provide us with massive opportunities to promote and showcase the women and girls game. One of the things we are on the cusp of having agreed is from September 2022, we'll actually change the age banding, because now we have enough of a critical mass of girls playing the age grade game in that we can move away from our two-year age bands and the big 3-year age band at under 16, 17, 18 and go to 2-year age bands. So we'll actually, we've proposed and had accepted to this point that we'll move to under 12 girls, and then 13, 14s will play together, 14s, 15s, and 15s, 16s, and 17s, 18s. Now that clearly provides us with a great opportunity and real buy-in from the girls' game so far to that. So that's work that will be worked on throughout the next season. But really massive part of the game. We know most of your schools are co-ed, and again, being able to provide a rugby offer, as Mike has outlined, that that goes right from the non-contact game to the full contact game to those girls is a real opportunity for them and for us all as well. So anything that you see from us should now always reflect that this is about boys and girls playing our sport more than ever.
Okay, I've got one more email from Richard from Bishop Wordsworth Grammar School, who can't make it. So.
Hi, can I just say something, please?
Yeah, sure.
My name's Mike Porges. I sent in a message and a question. Apparently, it was meant to be raised, but you must have missed it. It's to do with what Clive alluded to and Mark as well. It's about girls rugby. I wondered if there are any plans at all to have competitions for the girls. When we started in 2014, there were local, regional, and national competitions, and then it dried up around about 2018. We've heard nothing since, and it's really difficult to get matches because I know that once people start playing, they always like to get to that competition stage, and it's so difficult without something to aim for, especially when you compare it to the boys who have these competitions in place. So I just wondered if there's any plans to do something about that in the future.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, there is. We've reshaped for the club game. We've reshaped the fixtures and cup competitions there. What we want to do in the girls' game is almost a bit of a mapping audit of who's playing or who intends to play, and try and create fixture pools, which means that you can have a much more of a discussion around the levels that people are playing at, because of course the difference in a group of girls who have just started to a group of girls who have been playing a couple of years can be quite drastic. So it's definitely on the agenda. And one of the things we're also doing, which Mike sort of referenced a little bit when he was talking, is some of you might be aware of the Inner Warrior series. So Inner Warrior is basically the recruitment program, if you like, for girls and women's rugby. We're shaping a version of that is school and college friendly. Now that not only creates, I guess, camps is the best way to describe them, but opportunities and tools and resources for girls to come along, try rugby, get involved in it. But also on the back of that, we will build this network of schools that are playing and can get in touch with each other and actually start to play against each other, not only in 1v1 fixtures, but looking at the festival programme and things like that as well. So it's absolutely on the agenda, Mike, and you'll start to see, expect to see information on that from September onwards.
Yeah, it'll all be part of that package that we mentioned. It was a good spot, Mark. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. I've got one more email to share with you from Bishop Wordsworth. I'm not sure what you can do about this, but academies, I'm presuming Premiership clubs, give our boys a fair chance by coming to see them, offering opportunity through coaching clinics at schools and generally showing interest. The said academies should then not poach for their affiliated schools, mostly independent. This is not much of an incentive for a school to put players forward if an academy is then going to try and take them at first team level. Point two, any help with funding would obviously help, either monetary for travel, medical cover, etc., or through training of players and staff as young officials, coaches, to help ease the burden on PE staff and hopefully give players other routes to stay in the game.
The first one, Graham, regarding the academy structure, what we're continually doing, and Mark from ERFSU is involved in this as well, is the relationship between all the different sectors of schools first of all, but then those who are involved in working with those sectors of schools in the pathways is a massive drive for us. And I'm not sure if anyone on this call might have attended yesterday evening. We had Don Barrell, who's the head of academies at the RFU, and also John Pendlebury, who's the England under-18s head coach, did a session last night to talk about how they do things at particularly at under-18 level. But we're going to create more and more of those opportunities, or certainly Mike is, to hear from and liaise with those guys, because it doesn't only happen as a result of the academy programs. Still, there are opportunities for people who are running those sorts of programs to view players at all different levels, whether it be DPP or county programs, etc. as well. So the alignment is really important, and I think it's an important point that everyone's in this together. We shouldn't be weakening one school or one area of the game because another area is trying to get stronger. And I think this comes back to this whole thing of this is more important than it has ever been, because our sport is under huge pressure from what's happened over the last 18 months. If we don't do it together, we could easily drive some wedges between really important parts of the game that will affect players. In some ways it's not about us, is it? It's about the player themselves. So I think it's a really good point, and we're trying to create that relationship all the time.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Do we have any other questions for Michael, Mark, or general points of interest to share? Okay, Nick.
I do if I can. I'm not sure whether it comes across your remit, Mark or Mike. I've been asked to raise the point about course fees, in particular the director of rugby one that's just come out, or has just been advertised. It's £600. All right, you'd argue the cost there. It's run midweek on a Tuesday, Wednesday. So for someone like a state school, grammar school like us, that's potential cover for an extra 4 days on top of the £600. Look, I've got a good school programme, so I'm lucky. I'd love to do the director of rugby course to see if there's anything I can, progress on. But £600 for the fees, and then an extra 4 days potential cover at anywhere between £200 and £250 makes it inaccessible. I'll put it out there. So I have flagged it with Lorne, I think, or via our coaching channels with Lorne, but that course, both midweek and cost, is not accessible for, and I'll say it, non-independents that might have A, the money, and B, the staff to cover 2 days worth of games, lessons, fixtures, whatever they are covering, lessons.
Nick, if you've started that dialogue with John Lawn, for everyone, John Lawn's our head of game development, so the course programme sits with it, then we can take that in as well. We regularly, and in fact in the last couple of weeks around the stuff Mike's been talking about, the new offer, we regularly have those conversations about how we can make sure we create accessibility for all sectors of the game. And yeah, I think the cost of the course, I can answer that one easily. What we do is we benchmark against all those courses, and still RFU courses are significantly less than the courses. I don't know if you all saw yesterday, the FA announced the change to their new course, and their basic course, which is our IRCA level, is £190. Ours is half that. So we are really competitive from a course fee cost point of view, but you're right, there are other major costs, particularly for school teachers around cover, etc., that need to be factored in as well. So that timing one is a really key one. We'll take that and have that conversation again and see what we might be able to influence, Nick.
That's what I was going to mention, Mark. I was going to say that's that timing bit. Is that what you'd prioritise, Nick? Would you prioritise the when, the timing of it against the cost of the actual course?
Yeah, I get the 600 for 4 days and a couple of residentials. Maybe if you didn't have the residential option, because I think it's going to be on our doorstep, but I get the 600 quid. I think it's the additional time that then bumps it up to a figure that's not manageable.
Yeah.
Okay. That's for me. It's sort of, it comes back to, again, Harty, I know we've had this discussion, Matt, the closed course scenario, we're all sat here as schools with all the students, 14 to 18, if I want to run, a closed IRCA, error, whatever, at £50 a pop for 20 kids at £1,000, again, I'd argue that's, again, the £50 on its own, I'm not arguing that that's not a reasonable figure, but when you try to manage that as a school for students to get them on the coaching refereeing ladder, I think, that fee, again, a school can't, you'd be going to ask the students, maybe a school can't cope with or account for £1,000 for running an in-house closed course. We've got the kids, we've got the venue, we've got everything they need other than an educator and an RFU stamp. without sounding too demeaning.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. Any more questions? So Mike and Mark, do you want to say anything before we wrap up? One question I've got is there a is everyone getting, is there an RFU sort of schools communication that is sent out? Because I'm not sure that all state grammar schools are receiving that. And what would be the best way to achieve this?
Mark, do you want to chip in there? Find your mute button. There you go.
Yeah, I'm glad to find my unmute button. I'm not used to Teams. I like Zoom. So there are regular up until COVID. There are monthly newsletters sent out. This is through GMS. So they're also posted on our website. But since we've had COVID-19, I've been sending out emails through GMS twice a week. So if you check your spam, because I might be in your spam folders. But if you're not registered on GMS, if you complete the link to the membership which I've just put in the chat, I'll pick that up and I'll then be able to go through the process of adding you to GMS and linking you to your school or to your establishment.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, what I'll do is I'll do a little one-pager with because I appreciate people being in and out the chat of all the links from the chat and send it to Graham, and Graham can distribute it out. How's that for everyone? Will that help? Thanks, Mark.
Okay, Mark and Mike, any final comments?
Yeah, Graham, only other thing I was going to say, the chat around trying to get some, on the back of Mike's comment around trying to get some girls fixtures together is great. And if we can help that at all, this mapping we're going to do around schools that are playing will really help that. So we've got one group here, haven't we? There are other schools in other groups in other state schools, independent schools who would really want to be part of that as well. So we can try and help you build that, and we might be able to get some time off some of our guys to help facilitate it as well. It's brilliant. The chat on that is great.
And that's all I was going to say, Mark, as well. It's actually you've all answered your own questions. Actually, the fact that you start to network with each other already. So me and Graham caught up already in terms of actually going forward in this engagement. Hopefully, we could try and do this again. And actually, I'll catch up with Graham in terms of a few actions around actually how we support that fixture piece, which will be aligned to the mapping bit as well. So hopefully we'll try and get together a couple of years. And on top of that, of course, Graham's part of the school partnership group anyway. So we can start to do that mapping with you. That might be a form of a survey. And let's talk about the best way in terms of actually how we can set the Teams chat, how we can actually get you guys to chat as a community. So you can actually start to pull that fixture pull year out, and it's all self-sustained then as well. Okay. So I don't have the answer for that, but let me look at the best mechanism for you. Could be just a little group chat or something that we get going, and you guys can self-regulate it yourselves. Okay. But other than that, just a massive thank you for your time.
Okay, well, thanks very much, all. We recorded this session, so I'll send it out to everyone, so you can send it to anyone who hasn't been able to be here. But thanks very much indeed. If you've got any questions about rugby moving forward, please do get in touch with me. Okay, and I can go straight to the likes of Mike and Mark to get some answers. But it's great to have you all together, and thanks very much for your time. And have a great summer. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care.